Office Hours, episode 135. 35 is one of my favorite numbers. It's the number worn by the great Frank Thomas of the Chicago White Sox. So little trivia there. I hope you are all having a wonderful day. We are here for Premed Office Hours to answer your questions live. I'm with a small contingent of the advising team. Courtney Lewis, former director of admissions at Burrell College of Osteopathic Medicine, our newest advisor. How you doing, Courtney?
Really good. The sun is out in Seattle, and that equals a really great day.
Give it 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It will come in.
Don't harsh on my dream, okay? I'm really enjoying this right now.
All right. Well, that's why they have the Space Needle, so you can get up above the clouds, right?
Yeah, well, I'm looking right at it.
I was staring at you the other day because I went up to the Space Needle. I'm like, Courtney lives somewhere around here.
Oh, yeah, no, it's right there.
There it is.
There it is.
Beautiful.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a cool little area. All of the museums there, the stadium there, the Space Needle there. I was pretty impressed.
Yeah. I feel like I could feel your energy in the area. I didn't know where you were, but I knew you were around.
Yeah, I just feel like if you're going to move to a new city and you've got the means to move right into the thick of it like you did, that it's such a great way to experience a new place.
Yeah, plus, I mean, the traffic up here is just atrocious. So anytime you could cut down on commute and make things convenient, good.
Yeah, cities are better when you can walk, for sure.
Yep.
Rachel Grubbs, co-founder here at Mapped and test prep MCAT expert for 20 or so years. How you doing?
I'm great. The sun's out here too, which I'm fine with. Somebody told me today is like the halfway point between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. I like winter, but I do also like getting more light. So I'm excited about our days getting longer.
Okie dokie. Nice. Well, 2 longer days. That just gives us more time to answer questions, which is what we're here for.
Right. So that's how that works.
Let's rock and roll. Appetizers and sushi. My letters of recommendations are from a physician to science professors. I'm a non-traditional student that graduated 5 years ago, but took my science prereqs. It's very noisy upstairs. Sorry if you hear that. Took my science prereqs in the past 2 years. Is that okay? Courtney, as the most recent former director of admissions, when your school set, or if you've had conversations with other directors of admissions, when you set kind of your rules on what letters of recommendations you want, how flexible are you for students like this?
For non-trads, there may be a little bit of flexibility, but generally there will be a time frame in which we call you a non-trad. It's not just, I've been out of school for 1 or 2 years. It's generally 3 or more, and then we'll allow for supervisors. But getting letters of recommendation from 2 science professors and a physician, it sounds like, you're a good chunk of the way there. Generally, it's hard to get 2 science professors. Am I just reading this wrong?
Yeah, no, I think the concern is that there's no non-science professor, which is the standard rule of thumb.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
it's a school by school, unfortunately.
It's a school by school, yeah. And in 2 years, some may consider that non-traditional or a long enough time period to which they'll allow you some. But I would caution in asking for too many, give me leeway on this or expectations on that. Try your best to meet the actual requirements, because as best we can, we are going to hold tight to those requirements, and everybody has to meet those. Generally, there's only 1 or 2 things that we can even go into a gray area, and that has to be standardized across the board. So if we do it for 1 person, we have to allow it for everybody in that circumstance. And so that's, as frustrating as it may seem, again, it's to be fair and equitable across the board. No one is getting anything that somebody else wouldn't get. And so that's why we have to hold to it.
Yep. So lots of phone calls and emails in your future, appetizers and sushi, because it's a school by school. I know at least one school, CM Houston State. I love that they specifically mention on their website, if you've been out of school for more than a year, then you can use alternative letters. So I wish, I keep coming back to, I just wish schools were more transparent. Like, put that on your website, because then it's in writing. And if you want to put case by case, then you're covering your butt for other kind of opportunities that may arise. But unfortunately, it's just going to be a school by school based decision.
Yep.
There's a lot of decision makers usually in that conversation. I can tell you, you can logic it all you want and want to be as transparent as possible. But, the more granular you get or the more detail you provide, sometimes it just becomes a little bit convoluted, either on the back end or, but it can be frustrating.
Yeah.
No. Look at us.
I like this view. This is one of my favorite views. Wyatt asks, I went to Kenya for a volunteer trip. Jambo, habari yako? And I'm unsure on how to classify it. Should I put it under volunteer experience, shadowing? Some aspects were shadowing. We'll talk about it in my AMSA description. So I'm assuming you went for AMSA. Yeah. Rachel?
Yeah, there's not a right or whoops, wrong. Man, I have this thing. I just really want to put Courtney on camera. There's not a right or wrong answer here, Wyatt, right? Many activities can be classified under different things. So you kind of have to make a choice in terms of where you think it fits best. And one of the ways that might help you make that decision is start to think about what the essay is going to look like. Start that rough draft. Because if you don't have a lot of like volunteer experience stories and the things that are coming to mind are shadowing, then maybe it goes under shadowing. Often we don't even write essays for shadowing. Often the shadowing activity is the one place where instead of an essay, it's just a list of physicians. And then again, you say, talk about it in my AMSA description. Again, I'm not sure what the context of that is. Maybe you went with AMSA, but so are you saying like, does it go under club or does it go under volunteer? Either, right? No rules and activities. So you pick the place you think it matches best and make sure that the essay you're writing is in line with the classification you pick. And so that might mean the essay comes first and the classification follows.
Yep. Julie asks, given the cost of applications, is it worth it for pre-med students to apply to private schools? Mm-hmm. My daughter will be applying this summer, but when she looks at the statistics for acceptance, ... Is there a follow-up there?
I don't see a follow-up there.
So I'm assuming private schools for undergrad or private schools for medical school. Julie, come back with a little bit more clarification there.
Yeah, we'll come back to you.
I'm assuming, let's just finish that thought. I'm assuming, because she's saying she's applying this summer, which is when applications open. So private schools for medical school. Look, the acceptance rate for almost all medical schools is between like 2 and 4%.
Right.
They're all low. Medical school is hard to get into. The average acceptance rate across the board, if you try to aggregate all 3 application services, is about 50%. But if you look at a per school basis, again, it's about 2 to 4%. Schools get thousands of applications for 100, 200, maybe 250 seats. Mm-hmm. So the private public discussion is actually not one that we talk about much in terms of when you're building your school list, you want to avoid the private schools. There are lots of private schools. There are lots of great private schools. In terms of acceptance rates, I wouldn't say across the board that private schools are harder to get into or easier to get into. Mm-hmm. I think what you may be seeing, because public schools generally, it's not a hard and fast rule, but generally have some in-state bias. You're seeing students who are out of state applying to private schools because they know that getting into public out-of-state schools is going to be harder. And so maybe that's what you're seeing is a little bit of decreased acceptance rates because of that, but I wouldn't be concerned about it. Courtney, you were at a private school. Did you like, why are people applying to us? We're a private school.
No, I would say opposite. So when you're looking at these numbers, as Dr. Gray was saying, I think there's a lot of background information, and you need to know exactly what they're pulling that number from. But a lot of the times, private institutions have a lot more latitude in who they can accept and where they're coming from. And so if it's you align with the mission, you feel like it's a good fit, and they accept out-of-state students, I would say absolutely keep that on your list and don't rule that out. Public versus private, there may be a little bit difference in where the funding for the institution is coming from. However, great educations, I would not rule them out.
Yeah, Julie asked this follow-up.
So public out-of-state is harder than private. Again, we're talking generalities, school by school specifics. Like University of Michigan, we always say, is one that's about 50-50 in terms of in-state, out-of-state, even though it's a public institution. Here, where I'm on faculty for a little bit longer, University of Colorado School of Medicine is it's a public school, but I think the majority of students are out of state. I think you have to look at the state that it's in. Is it a super densely populated state? Colorado is not very densely populated. And so there just probably aren't enough pre-meds to fill a full class of qualified pre-med students. And so they look out of state. And so you just have to, it's one of the good reasons to use the MSAR, the medical school admissions requirements tool from the AAMC for the MD schools. The Choose DO Explorer, I don't think has that sort of specific in-state, out-of-state data.
They do. It's just on the individual pages. It's not in a pulled report. You can go to ACOM, and I think that is included. Well, I don't know if it's on a school by school. So just slightly different reporting, but it is available in the Choose DO Explorer, just on the pages.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we want to show the MSAR real quick? I don't think
it's helpful.
I don't think the AAMC will be mad. I'm telling people to go get it, so I'll show it real quick. I have an account with them, just to let people know. All right, so if we were to, let me share my screen. I have to zoom out here. Share screen. MSAR. So the MSAR tool here, if we want to look at, let's look at Michigan, just because I mentioned that one. Here, it's a public institution, right? So it lists here school type public, but they also accept out of state. But then the chart that I like to go to is way down here. If you scroll down, underneath all this stuff, underneath the median data, is this chart. So you can see 104 out of state and only 65 in state. So they actually, historically, I've always seen about 50-50. That's a big change. So this is one of the best tables that I like to go to for all of the schools to see, like, where are they taking their students from?
Yep. And that data, almost that exact same table, is available on the Choose DO Explorer. You just go to the individual school pages. Very similar.
Cool.
And then, just as always, with any statistics, do not interpret last year's data for one cohort as the rule forever. It just gives
It's not a what are my chances.
Right.
Hopefully that was helpful. All right. Is it bad to double dip in activities? I shadowed a DO, but I also had a patient int.
What's with these things being cut off?
I don't know. Let's say interaction. So let's potentially say this is someone who was a medical assistant, and part of being a medical assistant was the doctor allowed her to stay in the room after she did the patient check-in.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about not necessarily double dipping in terms of hours, but splitting one activity into two categories. And then if you have 1,000 total hours, maybe 900 is your medical assistant role and 100 is shadowing. That is fine because you're not double dipping the activities. You're splitting one activity into two. Does that make sense, Sarah? Hopefully.
Next question. Got one queued up for us? There we go.
Peter, I'm interested in a couple schools. However, my science GPA and cumulative GPA, even after my current postbac, will not meet the lowest matriculation GPAs. All right, so let's go back to the MSAR, folks.
Peter, so lowest matriculation?
Yeah.
Are you conflating lowest with median? I think you might be.
So let's look at Michigan here, where we had that pulled up. Again, this is from the AAMC friends. If you don't like us sharing this data, we're telling people to go buy the MSAR. So hopefully you're okay with this. You're referring to this median data here, which is the big gray circle. This lowest number here, 358. And 349. The bottom one is science GPA. Top one is cumulative. This is not lowest. This is 10th percentile. So 10% of the class, Peter, is below that number. We don't know. This isn't a box and whisker where the whisker is the very lowest end. We don't know what that number is, and I hate it. I absolutely hate that the AAMC and the medical schools don't provide a lowest. Again, transparency.
I know why they don't.
I know why they don't too.
I know why they don't.
Would you like to share, Courtney, why they don't? Well, here I'll hypothesize. Well, I'll give you one reason that a med school, I won't say which med school, a med school told me why they don't at a conference that we were both at, Courtney, where we first met. The rationale was that, if we give the lowest data, the lowest GPA, the lowest MCAT, then students will know who that is. And I was like, I'm not even going to go there with the assumption that you're making.
Seems so rife with problems.
Yes. Like, okay, got it. So that was, I'm like, yeah, I don't buy that. But look, rules are made to be broken, except in the legal courtroom.
Exactly.
And so if you say the lowest GPA that we'll accept is a 3.0, and the best diamonds, needle in the haystack, whatever analogy, metaphor you want to use, comes through your doors, is the son or daughter of the dean of the school, and they're at a 2.99, and you have this published information that says the lowest GPA that we'll take is a 3.0, and you go, that's all right, we'll accept them. You're opening yourself up to lawsuits, and med schools don't want to do that. And so if they don't publish it, there's no rules. But then you also open yourself up to lawsuits like the University of Utah, which went through a big lawsuit for subjective admissions criteria. So nobody wins when lawyers are involved is the moral of the story.
Right.
Yeah. If there is a published minimum, and I've had to do something very similar to what you described, in turning people down that are well connected, and it's, again, to keep it equitable, right? We don't go into gray areas when we use certain phrases like must have, needs to have. My reason was actually different for not sharing the GPAs. I don't want to get a slap on the wrist, but sometimes, if you have a pathway program or something like that, GPAs may be a little bit different, but they may utilize the GPA from how somebody did in this pathway post-bac, instead of the actual GPA. And so that would really skew the number if they were doing that. So sometimes certain criteria is still taken into the equation, but not reported but it opens more questions sometimes if you put it out there. Well, what's this? This is like a random here. It doesn't make any sense, but you just don't have enough information to go off of. It's going to raise a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And their circumstances kind of regarding those types of things.
And that, I think, immediately goes to the fact that this number here, and I say this all the time, is we don't, I think what you're going to a little bit, Courtney, is we don't have the story behind that number.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. Is it a 3.0 cumulative GPA where the first 4 years were a 2.0, but the last 60 credits are 4.0?
Right.
And this student has shown resilience. They've shown whatever they can show. And the med school is like, oh my gosh, this person is academically capable. They showed it during 60 credits of a post-bac.
Yep.
And they overcame whatever they had to overcome because they obviously struggled early on for whatever their reasoning is. It's not even taking a chance because they've already proven themselves.
Yep.
But the numbers that we report are not going to be super sexy, which is why I love the fact that so many medical schools are pulling out of U.S. News and World Reports, because there's this like, oh, if we show that our average GPA of acceptance is lower, then that's going to look bad on us. I'm like, no, it doesn't look like, anyway.
It doesn't. So. Yeah. Yep.
So I just want to say we've made Peter very happy.
Life has meaning again.
I think those are happy tears,
Peter.
Right?
It's the reason why we love the GPA calculator and the graphs inside of Mapped is it allows us to see that story. It's not just one number. It's the lines. It's the graphs. It's showing us what happened here. And somebody came to me yesterday. I was having a conversation with an Application Academy student, and they said, I'm worried about my GPA. My trends are a little bit down. I was 4.0 my first 2 years, but then physics really got me. And I think my trends are okay. And I opened up her Mapped account, and it was like a 3.8 GPA.
Yeah.
And you could see the trend line was 4.0, 4.0. So it was the very top of the graph. And then her junior year dipped down. There was one semester where it dipped down to 3.4. And then it climbed back up. And I said, have no fear, right? With the 3.0 GPA, almost nobody's going to care about what that trend looks like.
3.8.
3.0 GPA.
No, 3.8.
3.8. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
3.8.
You're saying 3.0.
3.8.
3.8.
With a 3.8 GPA.
Yes.
3.8.
3.8.
3.8 GPA. Nobody's going to care. If you have a 3.3, then we hope that you have some trends there.
Right. And just a reminder, I've got a little ticker at the bottom. Mapped Pro, $750 a month. If you buy a year, there's a free trial. Go enter your courses, enter your activities, and we will help you. We will give you that feedback. You just message us through the advising chat tab.
Yep. But Mapped to calculate GPA is free.
Yes.
Forever.
Yeah.
And lots of other cool things in Mapped. I took a year off of college to join Air Force Reserves, currently in tech school. I'm already planning on doing the HPSP program. Should I put my military story in my application essay? Thank you. Courtney. Why do you want to be a doctor is generally what we say for the personal statement.
Yeah, I was going to say, how does it relate to your wife physician? Because you're still answering the same question. If it is part of that story, part of that journey, it provides some context, then I would say, yeah, you can include it. It'll likely be included in your activity section as well, which also has a description. But our common answer, it depends. You still need to answer the same question. So
yeah,
okay to have it in there, but Yeah.
My assumption is there's a lot of what I want to do as a physician in terms of the patient population I want to serve, which is a different question than why do you want to be a physician? So it'll obviously go in the activity section.
Yeah, and we worked with a lot of HPSP students, and You know,
I was one.
we understand the military route, either, you know, prior to school or if you join during school. So it's common. It's certainly not frowned upon. It's just you still want to answer the proper question.
Yep. Also, if you're applying Texas, they have a military essay. The other applications have talked to us about dishonorable discharge, but Texas has a, hey, do you have a military background you want to share? So
yeah,
room for it there.
Good question, Abdi.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you for your service.
I was just thinking that. All right.
Anita, my science GPA recently dropped to a 2.8 as I am a transfer student from a community college to university. Do I still have hopes of getting into med school with a gap year? Rachel.
Anita, the gap year is not going to fix your GPA. What I want to know is, what are you doing with the gap year? So this goes back to what we were just saying about grades. It isn't just about the number. And especially as med schools start to pull out of rankings, it'll be even less about the numbers. The number is the med school's methodology for assessing your ability to handle sustained academic rigor in upper level challenging sciences. So if your science GPA recently dropped to 2.8, that makes me feel like maybe your science GPA was higher and is going down. And that is not going to inspire confidence, right? Because, you know, if you take biochemistry at a college, it's probably a 15-week experience. And in med school, it might be 2 weeks. So the rigor is there and the speed is insane. And they want to know that you're ready to step up how hard school is and your ability to manage it. So again, it's not just about the number. I don't want you to give up hope. But when you say gap year, I think, well, gap year is neutral. That could be good or bad. It depends on what you do. It sounds like what you need to do is take a hard look at what happened with that transfer from community college to university. Ask yourself, did I take too many classes at once? Did you use all the things that come with your tuition? You know, office hours with professors, meeting with TAs. Oftentimes there's like a science lab or a study lab. Like, are you using every bit of resource that's available at your school? And then also free things like YouTube and Khan. Are you talking to your friends and family about how you manage your life to make sure there's space to do the schoolwork? And when you've done all that reflection, then go start taking some more science classes and prove to yourself and to med schools that you can do better. So don't give up hope, but you have work to do.
Yep. Chanel, as a non-trad who was a stay-at-home mom and part-time student to obtain prereqs not required to my undergrad degree in geology that I obtained 10 years ago, can I just get 3 LORs from recent profs? So we had a LOR question earlier. They are profs from community college, the rest of this question. Or do I need profs from my university days to write my LORs? Or do I need LORs from my old employer from 7 years ago? Chanel, we had a similar question earlier. You need letters of recommendations that meet the requirements from each of the medical schools. Each medical school publishes their own requirements in terms of what they want and what they're looking for. The age of your letters is not necessarily an important thing in terms of when you worked with those professors or had classes. Community college letters of rec are fine. So just got to make sure you meet the requirements of each of the medical schools that you're applying to.
Mm-hmm.
And check out my LORs, which is the new feature inside of Mapped as a Mapped Pro member to request, collect, and store, and then later transmit to the medical school applications and PA school applications and all of the applications in the future. So check it out.
Dun, dun, dun.
Kevin Fun, what should one do if they are unsuccessful this cycle? One.
No fun.
Speaking for a friend.
Asking for a friend.
Yeah.
I'm the friend.
Courtney, they didn't get in this cycle. Just give up. Go pick another career. It's never going to happen, right?
Hopefully not. You know, I think there's some time for reflection, right? Being honest with yourself, really looking at, was it a timing issue? Was it something in your application? Was it you were qualified and, it just wasn't your year? So I think reflection needs to happen, taking advantage of advising appointments and things like that, and continue on this path. Everybody often says it is a marathon. Sometimes, you end up with a couple of additional years at the front end, but in the long scheme of things, all you're doing is hopefully making yourself a better student, somebody who is going in with more experience, more understanding of patient base and yourself. And in the long scheme of things, it'll be okay. But, reflection and kind of being honest with yourself on things that can be improved is always helpful. You don't just want to become stagnant and keep going forward with the same thing. Sometimes, there's some adjustments that need to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And also give yourself a little bit of grace and take a little mental health check too. Sometimes failures are disappointing and they're rough, and it is okay to feel your feelings and to do something you enjoy outside of this, kind of regroup and get back at it. We're seeing more and more and more that it is taking a couple of cycles for people to get in, and and maybe that's just because stronger applicants, maybe it's because they built a rapport and they strengthened their application, for whatever reason. And it's just purely competitive, right? If I have 6,000 applications and I can seat 162 people, that's really difficult. Even if every single one of them is qualified, it's just not going to happen. So reflection, take advantage of advising, check in with yourself, check in on the application, and, keep at it. It may take just a couple extra years on the front end. Still same result at the end.
Yep.
Yep.
Maybe a perfect opportunity, Kevin, to work one-on-one with one of the advisors, with a single session, advising session where you come with your application and we poke and prod it. Basically a private application renovation session with one of us. Just go to medicalschoolhq.net and click on the advising tab for that.
I've been doing quite a few of those this week where it's like, okay, I'm waitlisted, or I'm still waiting on a couple of things. I'm not quite sure, but I don't just want to be stagnant. So, in kind of prepping and strengthening my application and potentially having to do this again, what can I be doing now? Can you take a look at what I sent in? Is there anything you can identify? Are there any red flags? What are your thoughts on it? And so we just, we scroll through all of the pages, we talk it out, we look over the personal statement, we look over the courses, and just dig through it, right? And some people even sent me some of their secondary prompts so I can see, if writing was a bit off in any of those. If everything looks good to go, we look at what schools they applied to and talk that out. So we really get into the weeds, but you have our expertise, and we'll go through page by page with you, quickly to see, or help you strategize or help you identify areas that may be high yield to kind of spend some more time in. So,
do you think, Courtney? Do you think is there an easy? I was seeing this argument on Reddit a couple weeks ago. Is there an easy assumption that one can make? I like how it's like stair step up.
Rachel.
An easy assumption to make if you look at an algorithm of, okay, I applied to medical school, I didn't get any interviews. Therefore, there must be something in my application where no school wants to even talk to me. Versus I applied to 20 or 30 schools, I got 5 interviews and I was rejected or waitlisted at all of them. Is it an easy assumption to say, I probably need to work on my interview skills?
If you're the latter, potentially, right? You made it past a certain hurdle, or at least it seems as such, because we we hold our interview slots. They're very precious to us, and there's not many of them to go around. So yes, but sometimes, having sat in on plenty of selection committee meetings, sometimes it ends up being things combined, right? Where it's just, maybe this in the application, we just needed a bit more information on. It could have gone either way, but, they're feeling one way or the other. And so it's not usually 100% that way, but yeah, if you don't get any interview invites and you cast a wide net, you were strategic but methodical about it, you were on time, I think you can think that maybe it was something in your secondaries, maybe it was something in your master application. And you're probably not off.
I when you said that, like, we keep interview invites
are precious.
Like, I want a meme of my precious with an interview slot.
Yeah, it's not Oprah saying you get an interview, everybody gets an interview. No, it's you get 400 you can give out for the 6,000 that came in. So, whenever I would talk to groups of deans or presidents or things like that, they're like, wow, great. Or boards, wow, this many applications, that's so wonderful. I'm like, yeah, I can get that number of 6,000 down to 600 like this, and if you do this one thing, that'll take away 400 applicants from me, like there's so many moving parts, and that number shrinks really quickly. And a lot of it comes from just our ability to do interviews with faculty time, just with resources and with what we know will fill the class and have a couple of students we feel comfortable admitting if the space opens up. So very tough, very, very tough.
Is there a standard number, do you think, of like, okay, I have 100 seats, I need to interview 300 people? Is it like a 3-to-1, 4-to-1? What is that number? Do you know?
Sure. It's going to be different for each school and kind of what they've seen historically for their turnover. If you're, I don't know, probably one of the not high ranking, I would say just a school in California, let's say.
Yep.
You have a lot of in-state residents, a lot of really qualified individuals, a lot of opportunity there. It's unlikely that you're going to have a 4-to-1 ratio, right? Where you're going to have to fill a seat 4 times. If you're a newer institution,
meaning the people that you accept are going to take that acceptance and actually matriculate.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And so each school is going to be a little bit different, but I can tell you that each school kind of knows what they're looking at. And if there's high fluctuations in that number, to know then how many they need to interview, with the potential of saying, there's probably some of those that we're not going to feel are a good fit, or maybe they don't, they're not going to accept our offer. So to fill the class, potentially fill it again halfway, fill it again fully, fill it again a couple times, and then,
And I love that kind of, that's not super behind the scenes. That's anyone who knows anything about that kind of process. There's always some sort of extra number of people that schools are accepting, knowing that one student may get 4 acceptances.
Sure.
And that one acceptance at those 3 other schools are actually going to not be true acceptances and matriculations. And so you're constantly, as you said, you're accepting for that same seat over and over again. And I think that just kind of goes back to what we talk about all the time is schools are looking at so much more than just, do they have the stats necessary? Do they have the stats? Do they have the activities? Are they going to be a good fit at our school in general as part of the community? And they're asking themselves, do we really think that this student, if we accept them, will come?
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of work admissions committees are doing.
Yeah. Well, and I found myself very often saying, like, that's not for you to decide. If they designated us, they wanted us to give them a fair and equitable shot. And we should assume that, yes, They want to go here. They sent us their application. They filled out the secondary. They did an interview. Off the table. That's their decision. And so it's sometimes reminders and prompts and things like that. But yeah, those conversations happen, and we try to keep it open and fair. But yes, we're looking at a lot and a lot of moving parts.
and the updated traffic rules as of a couple of years ago, I don't know what the Comus traffic rules specifically are, but the AAMC used to, the schools would go, okay, we want to accept Sally. Let's go look to see where else Sally was accepted. Oh, they're accepted at these other 3 schools. She probably won't come to us, so we're not going to accept her. And the lawyers got a hold of that, and they're like, yeah, you keep that. You can't do that.
Yeah, that's not fair. It's not fair to the student. They should be the ones to make that decision, ultimately, where they want to go. And sometimes it takes a couple of touches with the school for them to solidify that. They do get a multiple acceptance list that is released on the DO side, where if I have somebody with a paid seat deposit that accepted, and they accepted at other schools, I think that comes out May, March or May. I can't remember now. That's when we can identify it and say, okay, you need to pick between these 5. But
that's after
prior to that, prior to that, you know that information is private, and that's your decision.
Cool.
All right. Good conversation.
Love it. All right. Jean St. Pierre, I am planning on taking the MCAT no later than March 2024, so I can apply by June of 2024. Remember, you can submit your application without an MCAT score. One does not have to specifically limit the other. When should I start prepping? I'm debating between Blueprint and Kaplan. I need your opinions plus advice. Rachel, our MCAT test prep expert.
It is I. Yeah, Jean-Pierre, I love this question. I love that you're planning ahead. I love that you've heard me when I say no later than March of the year you apply. And because you're planning ahead, it's possible for you. MCAT prep can be 3 months. It can be 6 months. One of the most common mistakes I see pre-meds make is only allowing 2 months and then having to postpone. So it really seems like, I mean, there are people who can do it in 2. I've seen some wacko, brilliant weirdos who did it in 6 weeks. Most people need 12 to 14 weeks. But that assumes making it one of your primary activities. So I don't know you. I don't know what the rest of your life looks like. If you have a full-time job, or if you're managing a part-time job and school as well as MCAT prep, if you have people in your life who depend on you, so you're responsible for the rent or the mortgage or for the well-being of others, whether that's, parents, grandparents, children, all of those things are going to eat into your time. What I definitely recommend, whether or not you buy Blueprint or Kaplan, is use the Blueprint free study planner tool. It's amazing. It is free. It gives you access to a bunch of cool free stuff. So they've got a free diagnostic, a free full length, a whole bunch of free practice questions. I don't know what else is in there because they're always adding amazing stuff to their free bundle all the time. But the free study planner tool will ask you things like, it kind of takes you through a widget or a wizard of questions. So what's your target date? How many hours per week? Show me dates you have to black out because of holidays or finals, or do you want a week of cushion in case you're sick? Are there days of the week that you can definitely take practice tests, or the days of the week you definitely can't study? It'll kind of put all that together for you and then give you a tentative plan. And I believe the plan assumes using Blueprint materials, but it's still pretty evergreen. So you're going to get use out of it whether or not you use Blueprint. And of course, many students use Blueprint plus other resources. It's common for pre-meds to combine from many places. And I think that they have customization for you to add that stuff in. In terms of choosing between Blueprint and Kaplan, full disclosure, we are partners with Blueprint. So they are our preferred MCAT provider. They're our preferred provider because year after year, students tell us that they think they're the best. Now, all opinions are subjective, and I've been in MCAT prep long enough to know that best isn't a concrete thing. Best is best for you. So you should shop around. You should find the one that feels right. But with Blueprint, I love that they have tests only. They have a course. They have an online self-paced course. They have a live online course with lots of robust office hours. They have one-on-one tutoring. So kind of any level of need, any level of budget, they're going to have something for you. Good luck.
Thomas, if I'm 2 years out of college by the time I apply this year, graduating in 2021, am I considered a non-trad applicant? Sure. Yeah. I always wonder why people ask this question. I know TMDSAS has a non-trad question, but it's really like, do you consider yourself a non-trad? Not do you meet the criteria of a non-traditional applicant? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, whatever you want to say, Thomas. You can identify however you want to identify. Yeah. We're progressive here.
I think we probably only have time for one or maybe two more.
We have so many questions too.
Yeah. Alexis, can you pick the one that you just started at the bottom from Allison? Because we haven't answered a topic like this in a while. It's pretty deep.
This is a great session, my friends. I hope you come every week and hang out with us. Yeah. We're here every week, Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern. So Allison asks, I experienced a very negative life event that was a large part of my decision to being a physician. How do we include a negative experience without sounding too negative? Or should I just leave it out? I had a great conversation yesterday about this with a student. Courtney, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I often talk about my personal messaging to students is avoid negativity. Now, that doesn't mean you can't talk about the experience, but just avoid the negative side of it and talk about other things that help you lean forward. And I talk about it from that perspective because in general, as a human being, human psychology is we want to avoid negative things. We want to avoid personally to feel bad or feel anger or whatever. And so my general recommendation is try not to elicit those emotions in other people as they're reading. What are your thoughts here?
I think a lot of it is in the wording, right? You kind of finesse it and you need to be thoughtful about how much detail you're including, if it's appropriate for the personal statement and what you're writing about. There are oftentimes really challenging things that do draw people to medicine. And so first know that you are not alone. This is not an uncommon thing. However, your situation is unique. It's okay to include it as long as we can see the thought in just sharing an appropriate amount of detail and then talking about what you learned or the reflection or what was gained, what silver lining is there, even though something was really challenging. You know, some people may have had really challenging home lives and situations when they were younger. I don't need a tremendous amount of detail. Somebody could just say, you know, my home life as a child was really tumultuous and very challenging. And what I've learned from that is this, or I've been able to relate to people. So you can share it, just make sure there's a purpose for it, that you're not TMIing, and that, you know, overall you're focusing more on the positive or lessons learned and not just kind of, you know, going off on a negative tangent and really oversharing, where there's going to be concern either for professionalism and kind of social awareness knowledge or communication maturity, or putting more stress on you if, you know, something was kind of recent or something like that. So this is not necessarily the place for that, but you don't have to leave it out completely, I would say, if there's a purpose for it.
Agreed.
This is a tough one, and a lot of it is in the wording.
Yeah, the example I was giving to a student yesterday is like if my grandmother died from medical neglect and just terrible doctors who didn't listen to her and do what they needed to do, I could say the doctors were terrible. They didn't listen to Grammy. They killed her, and I'm gonna show the medical
Be a better
establishment
doctor. Yeah.
how to be a better doctor, right? And
Yeah.
that's one way that you could word it. Or you could say grandmother died, and there were lots of things that I saw that as a physician I would love to improve on. Without throwing anyone under the bus, you could potentially say the same thing with different words.
Yeah.
And it's just a very different experience for the reader.
Yep.
Agreed.
Professionalism issue, right? You know, if I'm going to put you in a third or fourth year rotation and you're already flinging mud and it comes across really negative, really judgmental, really pointed fingers, even if that's exactly what happened and you do have some bitterness of it, it does not serve the purpose. And it's just, it does not read well. If that's our first impression of you, it just doesn't read well. You know, focus on what is good and where you're at and what we're getting, why we should bring you in to have you become a physician. And
let me extend it a little bit, because again, the same conversation that I had with the student, she had this idea. She's super non-trad. She had this idea that her essay and her application should be focused on, I'm going to be a good little worker bee. I'm not going to come in and disrupt things. I just want to come in and be part of the establishment and not do anything. I'm like, you're allowed to be idealistic. Nobody said that you can't come in with these grand ideas of fixing things and improving things and bringing. She had amazing experiences from a 20-year career or something, or a little less than that, career doing process improvement things and other stuff in the corporate world. You're going to add a lot to the class. You don't have to hide who you are to try to fit into this mold that you think med schools are wanting. So be careful where you get your information of what you think you have to be with this application.
Right.
Yeah, we're looking to build a cohort that works well together, that you can learn from each other, right? Diversity comes in all shapes and forms, and you add value, you add depth, and you know, you can bring that to the class. So yeah, and sometimes, you know, people with hard backgrounds or challenging events in their life, there can be a lot of empathy. There can be a lot of dealing with difficult patients and understanding sometimes people that need love are the hardest to love at the time. You know, there's so much that can come from a negative life event that can add value. Just stick on the positive.
Yep.
All right, friends, we've come to another end of a Premed office hours, formerly known as Ask Map, formerly known as Ask the Dean. We are here every Wednesday, most Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern. Remember, with a Mapped Pro account, Mapped is free forever, but with the Pro account, you get access to our new My LORs, as well as chat advising with our advising team. Yes, Courtney?
You should mention that we opened a new pathway.
Yes, we have.
Because a lot of these viewers may take advantage of that.
Yep. We have a new advising pathway called the Premed pathway. If you are first year, second year, and you want us to be your Premed advisor and meet with us once or twice a semester, whatever that may be, go to premedpathway.com and check out those advising options.
Yeah, very popular demand. Y'all have been asking for it. We delivered.
Yeah.
Yes.
We can start as early as you want or as late as you want. Maybe you're not ready to apply, but you need some guidance along the way. We are excited to get our hands in there and give you some advice. So we're not reaching the end point and saying like, ooh, 2 years ago, you should have done this. Like, let's get things in order.
Yep. And then Mapped Pro gives you the chat advising kind of version of that. You don't meet with us on Zoom, but you can chat with us inside of Mapped. So
for those that didn't get their questions answered, we're always available in Mapped Chat. So use Mapped, ask the advisors in there. We're always available. I know some people were sad that they didn't get their questions answered, but we are still available, and we're available next week. So
We'll hear next week.
Friday, right?
I'll be on Instagram on Friday with our good friends from Blueprints. So if you have MCAT specific questions, it won't just be MCAT, but
do we have a workshop tomorrow too? We're busy.
Do. We are busy.
We give a lot of free stuff away. So if you didn't get your help,
a lot of stuff.
There's many more chances.
Yeah.
Premedworkshop.com is the place to go for our workshop tomorrow about personal statements. I am also co-hosting a workshop with Blueprint today. What is that one called? You guys can go check it out at blueprintmcat.events. The phases of your MCAT prep. It's called Game Plan.
Ooh.
That's at 5 p.m. Eastern.
I like that. All right.
So lots. Nope, just blueprintprep.events.
.events. Sorry, friends.
That's all right. Close enough.
Google Blueprint MCAT events. You'll find it.
Yep. All right, friends. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you next